The storm raged outside, lightning flashing across the night sky as Emily said, "This letter changes everything." Her trembling hands clutched the old envelope she had just discovered in her late mother's chest. The ink was faded, but the words pierced her heart with sharp finality. John, her father who had vanished years ago, was not who she thought he was. Her chest tightened as grief mixed with betrayal. The candlelight flickered, and shadows danced like ghosts across the walls, whispering truths long buried. Emily said, "Why would she hide this from me?" The storm outside roared louder, as if the universe mirrored her inner chaos. A single tear slid down her cheek, falling onto the fragile paper, smearing the words that now tore her world apart. She pressed the letter to her chest, her voice breaking as she whispered, "Everything I believed was a lie." Emily sat by the window, the rain battering against the glass like restless memories. She whispered, "Was everything she told me a lie?" Her reflection stared back at her, pale and hollow. The storm outside felt like an echo of her soul. She longed to hear her mother's voice, to ask her why the truth had been buried. The sound of thunder rolled across the horizon, but it was her own silence that terrified her most. John's absence, now cloaked in mystery, gnawed at her heart. She touched the faded photograph of her parents, her fingers trembling, and said, "I don't even know who I am anymore." The door creaked as Daniel, Emily's childhood friend, entered. His voice was low but firm. "You shouldn't be alone right now." Emily didn't turn, her gaze fixed on the storm outside. Her words cracked. "I found something. Something that changes everything." Daniel stepped closer, his presence steady like an anchor in the chaos. He placed a hand on her shoulder, whispering, "Whatever it is, you don't have to face it alone." Emily's lips trembled as she held up the letter, her heart aching as if torn in two. Emily turned to Daniel, her eyes red and swollen. She whispered, "My father. He wasn't who I thought he was." Daniel's brow furrowed, his tone protective. "Then we'll uncover the truth together." Emily's heart throbbed at his certainty, but fear coiled in her chest. The room felt suffocating, the storm rattling every corner. She wanted to believe him, to cling to his promise, yet dread whispered that this truth would destroy everything she knew. The night deepened as silence stretched between them. Emily finally said, "If we open this door, we may never go back." Daniel's voice was steady, "Then we face it, no matter what comes." Her pulse raced, fear and hope clashing inside her. She glanced once more at the chest, its dark secrets waiting. The storm quieted outside, but the storm within her raged fiercer than ever. She clenched her fists, her voice breaking. "Then let's begin." Morning light filtered through gray clouds as Emily stared at the chest, her heart pounding. She whispered, "This isn't just a letter. It's the beginning of something darker." Daniel stood behind her, his arms crossed, jaw tight. He said, "Secrets like these don't stay buried forever." The air smelled of rain-soaked wood and dust, a suffocating mix of past and present. Emily's fingers brushed the fragile papers again, fear sparking through her veins. She longed for her mother's comfort, yet every artifact screamed betrayal. Daniel's voice broke the silence. "Are you ready to face the truth?" She met his gaze, her whisper shaking. "No, but I have no choice." Emily unfolded another letter, her hands trembling as she read aloud. "To my daughter, forgive me for the lies." Her voice cracked. Daniel leaned closer, his brow furrowed. "What lies?" he asked, urgency heavy in his tone. The words on the page blurred with her tears. A confession about John's disappearance. A secret her mother had carried to her grave. Emily gasped, her chest aching. She knew where he went. She knew why he left us. The truth wrapped around her like a vice, choking her. Daniel's voice softened. "This changes everything, Emily." She whispered, "It changes me." The fire crackled weakly in the hearth as Emily whispered, "Every word feels like a blade." Daniel crouched beside her, steady voice anchoring her. "The truth hurts, but it frees you." She wanted to believe him, but doubt clung tight. Her heart screamed that freedom came with a cost she wasn't ready to pay. She pressed the letter against her chest, her breath uneven. "I don't know who I am anymore," she admitted, voice breaking. Daniel placed a reassuring hand on hers, eyes meeting hers with calm strength. "You're still you, Emily," he said. "This secret doesn't define you. It reveals you." The door creaked again, and Margaret, Emily's elderly neighbor, stepped inside, her eyes sharp. Margaret said, "That chest should have stayed closed." Emily stiffened, her heart hammering. "You knew?" she demanded, her voice trembling. Margaret's face held sorrow, lines etched with secrets long kept. "Some truths destroy more than lies," she whispered, her voice carrying decades of regret. Daniel stepped forward, protective. "Why didn't you tell her?" Margaret's hands shook as she held the edge of her shawl. "Because it wasn't my story to tell," she confessed. Emily's knees weakened as realization crashed down. Everyone knew, except me. Emily's voice broke into a whisper. "My whole life, built on lies." Margaret's eyes glistened. "Your mother wanted to protect you." Anger surged in Emily's chest, clashing with grief. "Protect me? She left me in darkness," Emily cried, her fists clenching. Daniel stepped closer, his voice calm but firm. "Emily, we can still uncover the truth together." Margaret shook her head slowly, her tone heavy. "Some truths can't be undone once revealed." Emily's tears fell freely as she looked at both of them. "Then I'll bear the cost," she whispered, "because silence has already broken me." The cottage air felt heavier as Emily whispered, "Every answer births another question." Daniel leaned against the wooden beam, his eyes shadowed. "We're not done yet," he said firmly. Margaret lingered in silence, her expression torn between guilt and pity. Emily's pulse raced as she traced the faded ink on another letter, one mentioning a man named Charles. She whispered, "Who is he?" Margaret's eyes flickered away, and Daniel's voice cut in sharply. "Tell us what you know." The silence stretched painfully until Margaret sighed, her voice fragile. "Charles was closer to your father than you ever imagined." Emily felt the room spin. Emily's voice broke. "Why didn't she tell me about Charles?" Margaret clasped her hands tightly, whispering, "Because it wasn't her secret to share." Daniel's eyes narrowed as he asked, "Then whose was it?" Margaret trembled, her words weighted with regret. "Your father's." Emily's chest burned with betrayal, the name echoing in her head. She felt as though pieces of her life had been deliberately hidden, denied, and erased. Her whisper shook. "How do I trust anything now?" Daniel's hand steadied her shoulder, his tone protective. "You trust yourself, Emily. The truth is yours to claim." The storm outside faded into drizzle, but inside, Emily's world remained turbulent. She whispered, "If Charles was tied to father, then he's the key." Daniel nodded grimly. "Then we find him." Margaret shook her head, her tone sharp. "You don't know what you're chasing." Emily rose, fists clenched, fire in her eyes. "I've been kept in shadows too long," she declared. Daniel's jaw tightened as he added, "If Charles holds answers, we'll drag them into the light." Margaret's shoulders slumped, her voice heavy with warning. "Light can burn as much as it reveals." Emily's chest ached, but her resolve deepened. Emily paced the floor, her steps echoing in the small cottage. She muttered, "Every secret feels like a chain around my neck." Daniel watched her with steady eyes, saying, "Chains can break." Margaret lifted her gaze, her voice sharp with fear, but not without cost. Emily turned on her, fire in her voice. "Cost or not, I need to know." Silence filled the room, broken only by the hiss of the dying fire. Daniel's tone grew firm. "Then we start searching for Charles." Emily stopped pacing, her breathing heavy, and whispered, "Then the hunt begins tonight." The sun dipped low, leaving the cottage cloaked in twilight. Emily stood by the chest once more, her hand firm on its lid. She said, "This is where the lies began." Daniel stepped beside her, his presence steady. "And this is where truth begins too." Margaret looked on with haunted eyes, her voice trembling. "The truth you're chasing may break more than it heals." Emily met her gaze, determination hardening her voice. "Then let it break me." The room seemed to hold its breath, every shadow pressing closer. Daniel whispered, then we move forward, together. Emily nodded, heart pounding with resolve. Night fell over the cottage, shadows stretching long across the walls. Emily whispered, Charles. He holds the answers, doesn't he? Margaret's silence confirmed more than words. Daniel leaned forward, his voice sharp, you're still hiding something. Margaret's eyes welled as she finally said, your father's disappearance was no accident. Charles was involved, but not the way you think. Emily's breath caught, anger and grief rising like fire. You all conspired to keep me blind, she accused. Margaret shook her head, trembling. We thought it would protect you. Emily's fists clenched, her voice breaking. Protect me? You betrayed me. Emily's voice shook. All these years, I thought father abandoned me. Margaret rose slowly, her eyes hollow. He left to protect you, she whispered, but the truth consumed him. Daniel's voice hardened. Where is Charles now? Margaret hesitated, fear tightening her jaw. He vanished after that night, she said. Emily stepped closer, desperation in her tone. What night? Margaret's hands trembled as she confessed, the night your father bled for secrets he should never have carried. Silence shattered Emily's breath. Her whisper trembled. You mean he's dead? Margaret looked away, unable to meet her gaze. Emily staggered back, her knees nearly giving way. She gasped, he's gone, and you all let me believe he abandoned us. Daniel rushed to steady her, his voice urgent. Emily, breathe. Margaret's voice cracked. We feared the truth would destroy you. Emily's cry broke like thunder. It already has. She pressed a letter to her chest, sobs racking her frame. Daniel's eyes burned as he glared at Margaret. You've done more damage than any truth could. Margaret whispered, tears falling. We only wanted to spare her pain. Emily's voice, raw with betrayal, echoed, you gave me worse. Emily pushed away from Daniel, wiping her tears. Her voice trembling but sharp. If my father died because of Charles, then I will find out why. Daniel's jaw set firm, his voice steady. Then we'll uncover it together. Margaret's warning rose. You don't understand what you're walking into. Emily faced her defiantly. I've lived in lies long enough. I'll face whatever truth remains. Daniel stepped closer, a protective presence at her side. Margaret shook her head, her whisper ragged. The truth doesn't heal, Emily, it consumes. Emily's eyes burned with fury. Then let it consume me. I'd rather burn than live blind. The cottage fell into a suffocating silence before Emily whispered, Charles is the only path left. Daniel nodded grimly, his tone resolute. Then we find him, no matter where it leads. Margaret's voice shook as she begged, don't chase his shadow. It will swallow you whole. Emily turned, her tear-stained face hardening with resolve. I've lived swallowed by silence, she declared. It ends now. The storm outside began again, thunder rumbling like an omen. Daniel's steady voice echoed, then we move at first light. Emily's gaze fixed on the dark horizon, her voice a whisper, and we face the ghost of my past. The rain had ceased, but Emily's heart still thundered. She whispered, if Charles was tied to father's death, then he'll answer for it. Daniel's jaw tightened, we'll find him. Margaret's eyes clouded with dread as she murmured, you don't understand. Charles isn't who you think he is. Emily froze, her voice sharp. What do you mean? Margaret's voice broke. Charles wasn't your father's enemy. He was his brother. Emily gasped, her mind reeling. My uncle, she whispered, the word tasting foreign. Daniel's eyes darkened, realization dawning. Secrets tangled tighter, changing everything Emily thought she knew. Emily's breath came ragged. All this time, I had family, and no one told me. Margaret's tears glistened as she said, your father swore me to silence. He believed Charles would only bring you danger. Daniel's voice hardened, hiding truth doesn't erase it. Emily's fists trembled as rage mixed with grief. He was my blood, she whispered, and I never even knew. Margaret shook her head slowly. Blood doesn't always heal. Sometimes, it scars deeper. Daniel's gaze locked on Emily, firm and protective. Then we find him, he said. Emily's voice, sharp but trembling. I need to see him. Emily's voice cracked as she asked, "Why would father hide his own brother?" Margaret whispered, "Because Charles carried sins that could drown you both." Daniel's jaw tightened, his voice steady. "What kind of sins?" Margaret's eyes shifted toward the floor, her silence heavy. Emily stepped closer, demanding, "Tell me." Margaret finally whispered, "Charles was the reason your father never came home. He betrayed him." Emily's body trembled as the words struck like knives. She whispered, "My father died because of him." Daniel's eyes narrowed, his voice low and cold. "Then Charles isn't family. He's the enemy." Emily's voice broke into a sob. "He was supposed to protect us, not destroy us." Daniel placed a steadying hand on her shoulder, his voice calm but fierce. "You still have a choice. Let him define you, or confront him." Margaret whispered, her voice trembling, "Confronting Charles will awaken dangers you can't imagine." Emily's hands trembled as she clutched the letter, whispering, "Danger doesn't scare me anymore. Lies do." Daniel's voice deepened with resolve. "Then we find Charles." Emily's tear-filled eyes hardened, her whisper fierce, "And I make him answer for what he's done." The storm outside swelled again, thunder rolling like a drumbeat of destiny. Emily whispered, "Charles will answer for father's death." Daniel's voice cut through the roar, "Then we hunt him down." Margaret's frail whisper echoed, "If you do this, there is no turning back." Emily turned toward the window, lightning illuminating her face with fierce resolve. "There was no turning back the moment I opened that chest," she said. Daniel stepped beside her, unwavering. Emily's voice dropped to a whisper, carrying both fury and pain. "This isn't just about truth anymore. This is about justice." The night wrapped itself in silence, broken only by the crunch of gravel beneath Emily's boots as she and Daniel walked the narrow forest path toward the chapel. Her heart pounded like a drum inside her chest, each step echoing her fear and determination. Emily whispered, "Every shadow feels alive, watching me, judging me." Daniel walked close, his expression rigid, his voice firm. "You're not alone. We finish this together." A cold wind swept through the trees, sending branches clawing against the pale glow of the moon. Emily clutched the folded letter tightly against her chest, as though it were both a burden and a shield. Her whisper cracked, "Father, guide me tonight." Daniel glanced at her, his eyes steady. "He's with you, in more ways than you know." Every step forward felt like a step deeper into fate, and the air was thick with truth waiting to be faced. The abandoned chapel rose before them, its walls cracked and stones cloaked in ivy, the roof sagging beneath years of decay. Emily's breath caught as her voice trembled. "This place feels like it's been waiting for me." Daniel's eyes swept the broken stained glass, his tone low. "Places like this remember what we try to forget." Emily stepped forward onto the worn steps, each creak groaning beneath her weight like echoes of prayers long silenced. Inside, the air reeked of damp stone and ashes, a suffocating reminder of things buried. Emily whispered, "I can feel him here." Daniel moved closer, his expression sharp. "Then tonight, you claim what belongs to you, the truth." Emily closed her eyes briefly, whispering, "I'm ready to face him, no matter the cost." She placed her hand on the chapel door, feeling the cold seep into her skin, as though fate itself welcomed her inside. Inside the chapel, silence stretched like a living presence. Emily's voice cracked, "This place, it feels like a tomb." Daniel's gaze swept the dark corners, his tone steady, "Maybe it is." Suddenly, footsteps echoed, deliberate and heavy, sending a shiver down Emily's spine. A shadowed figure stepped forward, cloaked, face hidden, each step ringing like a judgment. Emily's breath stilled as her whisper broke, "Charles." The figure lowered his hood, revealing a weathered man with hollow eyes and a scar etched across his cheek. His voice rasped with age and bitterness, "You've carried your father's ghost long enough." Emily's knees weakened, yet she held firm, whispering fiercely, "And you've carried his blood." Daniel shifted closer, protective, eyes locked on the man. The truth Emily had feared was no longer a shadow. It stood before her, flesh and bone, ready to strike her soul. Charles's voice rang through the chapel, sharp as a blade. Your father chose his secrets over his family. Emily's tears burned as she whispered. And you chose betrayal. Daniel's voice thundered. Tell us why he died. Charles stepped forward, face twisted with defiance. Because he loved the truth more than his blood. He wouldn't walk away, even when it meant losing everything. Emily's body trembled, rage boiling through her veins. No, she shouted, he died because you destroyed him. Charles's eyes flickered with something between guilt and rage. I did what had to be done, he growled. Emily's cry pierced the chapel like thunder. You murdered him. The word echoed, bouncing off stone walls like a curse, sealing the truth she had feared all her life. The chapel seemed to groan under the weight of her revelation. Emily's breath came in ragged bursts as she stepped closer to Charles, her voice breaking. You were my blood. You should have protected us. His shoulders slumped for the first time, his whisper hoarse. I failed you. Daniel's eyes sharpened, his voice firm. Failure doesn't excuse betrayal. Emily raised the letter high, her tears streaking down her face, her voice fierce. These lies die here with you. Thunder cracked outside, shaking the rotting chapel beams. Emily's tears fell freely, but her whisper rang strong. You don't own my story anymore. You never will. Charles lowered his head, silence his only answer, his frame heavy with defeat. Emily closed her eyes, inhaling deeply, releasing years of weight in a single breath. For the first time she felt her chains break. She whispered, I am free, as dawn's first light crept into the shattered windows. Silence fell heavy in the chapel as Charles lowered his gaze, broken beneath the weight of truth. Emily whispered, You took him from me, but you won't take who I become. Her voice trembled yet carried strength. Daniel placed a steady hand on her back, his tone firm. You faced your demons, Emily. That's more than most ever dare. Charles muttered, I never meant for it to end this way, his words drenched in regret. Emily's tears fell, but her voice steadied. Regret doesn't heal. It only lingers. The chapel seemed to exhale, its shadows releasing her at last. Emily stepped out into the dawn, the storm finally broken. Her breath met the cold morning air as she whispered, The truth cost me everything, and gave me myself. Daniel walked beside her, his voice warm and steady. You are not the same woman who walked into this night. She glanced at him, her lips quivering into a fragile smile. I feel broken and whole, all at once, she admitted softly. The world around them was quiet, wet earth glistening in the sunrise. For the first time in years, Emily felt the weight of silence lift from her soul. They walked the path back toward the cottage, silence between them, yet heavy with unspoken strength. Emily whispered, I once believed I was nothing without answers. Daniel turned to her, his voice calm. Now you know answers don't define you. Her eyes glistened as she replied, No, but they free me. She clutched the letter one last time before letting it slip from her fingers, the wind carrying it away. Daniel watched quietly, admiration in his eyes. Emily's whisper lingered, I let go of the lies, and with them the weight of my past. Back at the cottage, Margaret waited, her shoulders hunched in worry. Emily entered, her voice soft yet firm. It's over. Margaret's eyes filled with tears as she whispered, I only wanted to protect you. Emily's tone carried no anger, only quiet truth. Protection built on silence is still a cage. Margaret reached out, her hand trembling. Emily took it gently, her whisper tender. I forgive you, not because it erases the pain, but because it frees me. Margaret wept openly, her voice trembling. Then maybe I can find peace too. The air between them softened. Later that morning, Emily stood alone by the window, sunlight spilling across her face. Her whisper lingered in the stillness, the past will always live within me, but it no longer owns me. Outside, the storm-washed fields glistened in golden light. She closed her eyes, inhaling deeply, the ache in her chest now softer, transformed. Daniel's voice drifted from behind. You found your peace. Emily turned, her fragile smile carrying both sorrow and strength. I found myself, she said. The world was quiet, not empty, but whole. At last her story was no longer buried. It was hers to live.